So now in this shot we've removed the cowling, and this is just to show you some of the most important things with flying petrol aeroplanes. Petrol aeroplanes, as I said before, everything tends to vibrate loose, and it's important to make sure that this mounting here on your firewall stays tight. And in my experience on the bigger planes, and to a lesser degree maybe the small one, you need to check this at least every 15 to 20 flights.
That's going to be very important.
Yes.
I myself learned that after the competition, you take your cowl off and you go through all the screws.
Correct, correct. So if we look at this small installation here, I've braided the wire here to give it some protection, just so it doesn't fly around here and get broken, because this is your timing sensor that comes on here. If we go a little bit further, having taken this cowl off, I flew it a couple of weeks back, and I've just noticed that this is actually cracked. So if I move this around, you can actually see this.
I can see it from here.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if I hadn't have taken this cowl off and done this maintenance, this would not have been picked up. And if you look at the cowl here, you can see it's actually worn on the edge of the cowl.
Because of that?
Yes, because of that. So ultimately what would have happened is this thing would have started vibrating very badly and probably would have broken this whole box off here.
And there, gone is your plane.
Correct. And the aeroplane is finished.
And how long did it take you to take off the cowl? 3-4 minutes off, have the inspections.
Correct.
So discipline forms part of this hobby.
Yes.
Well, that is if you want to fly for for extended period, and not just buy the planes and just lose it.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yeah. Look, as part of this thing, and one is always very lax. It's nice to fly the plane, put it in the car, and take it back next weekend and do the same, and lose sight of the fact. Me, myself, I have a logbook for all my aeroplanes, and I log all my repairs because I have a number of planes, and then I forget what I've done on these things. So I have a logbook for each of my aeroplanes. The attention here as well, the setup on the throttle servo here is also of paramount importance, and it goes back again. And I know I will have conflicting views in terms of setting this up. But with the advent of the electronic radios, I like to keep the mechanics of this thing exactly on the 90-degree throw. If you do want to put a curve in it, you can do an electronic curve. But generally speaking, I find it's not necessary. So particular importance as well, with this vibration, a lot of people skimp on the throttle servo. They will put a small throttle servo in here. And,
or an old one.
Or an old one.
A cheapie.
Correct. And
because it doesn't work hard. I know, that's what I used to say. Until that one day.
So I've seen and myself experienced throttle failures, throttle servo failures. So I generally spec the throttle servo at the same as all the other ones. And typically on these ones, I use a titanium servo. A metal gear servo is also good. And pay particular attention. This is very, very important. When you open the throttle, that there's no binding, I like to leave a microscopic amount of slack on the full throttle and the same on the bottom throttle. So typically on the radio, I would set up the idle trim all the way down, set up your maximum travel all the way down, and then a microscopic amount. So in the event that you pull that throttle trim back, the servo is not binding, and it also gives the servo gears a chance not to have any problem.
And perhaps we can go into finer details of that. You're saying a lot of stuff now. Important not to bind. How do we know it's binding?
Yeah.
How do we control it? How do we set it up from start? So guys, please comment. I think we can have a video just on your service, setting it up, switching on the radios, how to do that. I think will be a brilliant video in the future. Right, so spin it and prop, obviously.
Okay, so another golden rule, even if you buy a propeller, balance it. Very important. It cuts down vibration.
And specifically on these new
Very,
ones.
very much so.
Yeah, so you have to get, reduce your vibration as far as possible.
Yeah. So if you compare one of these, for example, and the bigger ones, they generally typically, because they absorb moisture, because they've got a high nylon content, the water evaporates out of there. That would be another safety issue. Old propellers that are nylon, I wouldn't go and use them. Go and put them in a pot of boiling water. It will absorb and reabsorb the moisture back into the nylon. So a nylon propeller, especially the old ones, can have the tendency to break.
Okay.
Even though they are...
And that's why we never stand in front or at the sides when we, start up our motors.
Correct. So that again. What else is there?
So we talked about the spinner, so guys, just to have a look. Make sure your prop spinner is tight, before. It's one of the critical checks for me as well. Before I start any motor or any plane that I've bought, make sure that connection there.
Yes,
is secure.
if we're talking about that, the prop nut, this is a nylon. It's not as susceptible to coming loose, but wooden propellers typically need to be tightened up regularly.
Yeah.
So.
If you would say, your advice, a wooden prop every how many flights?
I would say maybe if you're flying every weekend, maybe once a month.
Once a month.
Yeah.
All right. So we do get the gas motors with one nut, and you
Yes.
get the bigger motors with 8 of them.
Correct.
Again, taking off the spinner is 2-3 minutes. Take it off. Just check that quickly. Put it back on before we start when we go. All right. So we've tackled the motor, the gal fire, the firewall, fuel tubing. All right. I think from here onwards is just your airframe, and then we're just about done.
All right, so here we are going to show you the little pre-flight. The pre-flight would be a critical part of before you take off. I have also made this error of not doing my pre-flight properly, and it's cost me an aeroplane. So if we look at the setup, I have if we start with the ailerons, I have a wild, and then I have a mild. So for somebody that's new to RC, it's important to set your little rate switch up here. This one, I have 3 settings. So if I'm doing sedate aerobatics, I have a lot of stick throw here and very small movement on the ailerons. If we look, let's take the intermediate rate. This is part of the setup of the model. Your throw here and here to start with should be exactly the same. And that goes back to the mechanical part of it, where you can set that up. You'll notice that the neutral points are very close to being perfect. Obviously, it's been flown a little bit. It has a little bit of in-flight trimming. So vital that those are equal. We'll speak about the differentials at a later stage, but for the basic setup, that would be the issue. So pre-flight, we check that the ailerons are working. It would be a good idea to just give a little tug on these ailerons. In fact, on all the surfaces, periodically give them a good little tug. See that these are not loose. If they are loose, it can, first of all, obviously allow the aileron to come off, and secondly, in even more damage, it can flutter and destroy the aircraft. So if we move to the back end, part of the pre-flight would be to give all of these servos a little tug. See that all your screws are still secure on the servo. You can check your linkages, that little bolts and stuff are still in there. They do come loose no matter how good you're at it. Good to check them periodically. Again, we do a pre-flight. We check the throw, up is up, down is down. Very important to that. Some of our members have made the ailerons crossed, and it's inevitably an instant crash. Again, left rudder, right rudder. Again, see that everything's all tight here. All looks in order. So we'll be close to going to fly. Again, here we've got an indication that it's obviously on, as it's been working. And on this side here, we've got the ignition working, so we know that we're good to go.
Well, that brings us to the end of our first DIY video. I really hope that everybody would enjoy the knowledge being shared. And more, thank you, Rob. Thank you for your time and your garage and your beautiful farm here. We're looking forward to extend the show and get into the nuts and bolts of this. We've just been talking. The RC market is alive and kicking. A lot of second-hand models swapping hands, and it remains important that not to lose the interest in the hobby, to do your inspections and to do proper setups. You've told me, Rob, and so many guys out there told me 70% setup, 30% flying. And that's what creates or sustains this hobby, is exactly that. So thank you very much, guys and girls out there. Please leave your comments. We really hope that you've enjoyed this and that you've learned something. And well, we're looking forward to the next video. Watch this space to see how we're going to extend this series into other criteria as well. Rob, from myself and from Rob, cheers for now.
Cheers, bye-bye.